YouTube Ozic Owen, the Goat House is back with some updated playoff predictions heading into week 13. I usually don't update my playoff predictions this late, but my actual most recent playoff predictions are all jacked up because Joe Burrow got injured after that point. So wanted to update my playoff predictions for you guys last time until the actual playoffs are set, and then we'll predict them again. If you're listening to this video right when it came out, you're probably wondering where the Tuesday night pick'ems is at. That'll be on Wednesday night this week. Still coming, don't worry. Still all of our normal content plus videos like this always being added. I'm going to show you who I think's going to make the playoffs, and I'm going to break down how I came up with that in this video. Might be an interesting playoff field this year. Some interesting, unexpected teams could make it. We'll talk about it here. Join us for all of our content. Like, subscribe, to notifications on. Follow us on Twitter. A lot going on there. Always talking with you guys. And then check out our sponsors, Liquid IV, GLD Shop, code GOAT. Both those sites, GLD Shop, we have a giveaway. I'm always rocking their jewelry. Links pinned in the comments. So, real quick, this is how I think the divisions will finish, and I am blocking the Cardinals. So that's who's down there. Dolphins, Bills, Jets, Patriots. I mean, the Bills, they're good enough to win out, like get in playoff mode and win out, and then maybe win that division. Ravens, Steelers, Browns, Bengals, what I got in the AFC North. Joe Burrow going down changed that, obviously. South, the Jags beating the Jets last week kind of decided that. I'm pretty set on that's how that'll finish. Chiefs, the Broncos, one of the hottest teams in football. Chargers, Raiders, then you have Eagles, Cowboys. Yeah, everything's pretty straightforward. The NFC North is pretty tough with 2 versus 3, Packers versus Vikings. The Vikings just had a tough loss last night, actually, against the Bears. A little bit of a quarterback situation, but Justin Jefferson coming back. We're going to talk about that. That's interesting, Packers versus Vikings. NFC South, your guess is as good as mine right now, to be honest. It's going to be a battle. The Falcons, I think the Falcons are playing like the best team from that group maybe right now, but the quarterback play could stop them from winning the division. And in the West, the battle between the Rams and the Seahawks, we will break down how that happened as well. Right before here's my playoff field, and I'm going to go into exactly how, right after this, exactly how I came up with those teams. So AFC, the Chiefs, the 1 seed, the Ravens, the 2 seed, the Jags, the 3 seed. The Ravens will play the Jags coming up in a couple weeks. That'll be a huge game, Dolphins 4. Again, you can't completely rule out the Bills. If the Dolphins don't take care of business against the really good teams and the Bills win out. I like the Texans at 5, and Steelers and Browns 6, 7. The Browns could surprise some people. We're going to break it down. Eagles, Niners, which actually the Niners could, if they win out and the Eagles lose 2, they could hop the Eagles, very possible. Lions, and then the NFC South team, which would be the Falcons. Cowboys, Packers is a surprise here. Surprised me myself a little bit. We're going to break it down. It could very well be the Vikings. We could see the Seahawks. I was surprised I didn't have the Seahawks in here. The Rams at 7, which it's all about staying healthy with the Rams. I do like their schedule coming up. They're a very good team if they're healthy. So let's break it down. So playoffpredictors.com, you kind of can go game by game. So that's kind of what I did here. I'm going to start with the, and if I'm looking over here, it's because my other monitor's over here. I actually have what you see up over there. The Browns, who I have getting the 7th seed. And this is why. You see, they just got dominated by the Broncos, so that wasn't ideal. I have them losing 3 straight. Well, they already lost the Broncos. I have them losing 2 straight. I think they're going to lose to the Rams. I think they're going to lose to the Jags. I'm pretty confident with that. Then you look at the last 4 games. I mean, the Bears are playing better defense right now, I guess we'll say. But I have the Browns winning that. The Texans, I have the Texans winning that. So I have the Browns losing 3 more games still. But the last 2 games is what you have to look at here. I think people are probably pretty confident, like what I have going through. And then home against the Jets, Thursday Night Football. The Jets are a bit of a mess with the quarterback situation. Now the Browns are really beat up. And then they got the Bengals. That's no Joe Burrow. The Browns defense versus Jake Browning. I think that what's key is the Browns already have a pretty good record, and that's those final 2 games. So that was I may be a little surprised at some people. The Broncos, who just beat the Browns, they are the hottest team in football. They very easily could make the playoffs as well. I did not have them in. I'll take a look at the rest of their schedule. They just beat the Browns. Impressive victory there. They're in Houston. I'm thinking the Texans are going to win that game. I know the Broncos are probably due for a loss. Texans are a really good football team. It's in Houston. They're going to bounce back. But I was pretty confident with the Texans and the Lions as of right now, beating the Broncos. So those are 2 losses for the Broncos I'm fairly confident with. They play the Chargers twice still. Now, the Chargers aren't the greatest team in football, but they're not an easy victory. Like, we know both those games are probably going to be battles. And I actually had the Broncos beating them twice, but I did have them losing the Raiders, kind of a feeling there in Vegas, last game of the year. And the Raiders have been playing really tough. They've been playing teams tough. I think their running game with Josh Jacobs and the Broncos, that's still the worst part about this team is their run defense. I think that is the factor there. But you could say, the Broncos, they are better than the Raiders. Could they win that? Then, that puts them in the playoff 7th seed. But my thinking was I had them beating the Chargers twice. So between the 2 Chargers games and the Raiders game, I think they're going to lose one of those. I think it's pretty generous. So even though the Broncos, I think it's pretty generous to say they're going to win all 3 of those. They could. I think it's pretty generous, though. So looking at the schedule, even though they're the hottest team in football, the have some work to do to get in. Very possible, but so I've between this game in LA and in Vegas, I think they're going to lose one of those games between the 2, and that kind of keeps you at the same situation is what I had going into this video, whether they're losing that one. So that's my thinking there. Of course, we're not going to get every single prediction right on the rest of the year, but that's why I did this. That's where I came up with everything. Like, each team, I'm pretty confident they're going to win these games, or this game's going to be close, could go either way, so could they lose that one? That's kind of what I went with here. Who's another? We don't need to break down the Chiefs, really. The Ravens, I have them losing to the Niners. It's not easy. They got some tough teams here. They could beat the Niners, but they could lose to the Dolphins, the Rams. I don't think so, but Steelers is not going to be easy. The Jags is the big one, though. This is a game that's going to be very tough to pick, and that actually would flip. That would put the Jags at the 2 seed, as you could see, and the Ravens at the 3. What I like about the Jags, besides that they're home in this game, is that they stop the run very, very well. So they can take that run game away from the Ravens, make them rely on the pass. But I'm still leaning Ravens at this time because I think stopping Lamar would be a little different, his scrambling. And I do love the Ravens defense. I think that'd actually be a very, very low scoring game. It could be similar to that Ravens-Chargers game we just saw. The Jags I have getting going as well, getting that 3 seed. We don't really need to break it down. The Texans, tough game against the Broncos. I like them in that game. I like them against the Jets. The Titans game could be a trap game. Titans play better in Tennessee. Texans are far better, though. Browns are too beat up to beat the Texans at home. I definitely think the Texans will get Tennessee in Houston. Big game against the Colts. They did get beat up against the Colts last time, but the Texans weren't very good at that time. They're a much better team. I think they'll get them the second time around. So this is a rest of the schedule I'm pretty confident with. Maybe the toughest one is, I would say at Tennessee, and maybe in Indianapolis, the last game of the year. The Colts I have going 10-7, but not making the playoffs. This is an interesting one as well because they very easily can get in. I think a massive game. Well, first is taking care of business against the Titans, but I think a massive game is that Steelers game and the Texans game, I guess you could say, too. What happens if they beat the Texans? They actually pass them. They're both 11-6. Weird seeing the Colts being 11-6, or the Texans, really. So that would be huge. I think some people will say, the Colts beat them last and they could beat them again. Sure, it's really not how things work. But do I have them winning every game but 2? So my thinking was with this one is this week I'm already looking at my picks for Week 13. The toughest game to pick is Colts at Titans because I think the Colts are better, but the Titans play much better at home. I was leaning towards picking the Colts without too much hesitation. I'm going to be a little bit because the Titans are good at home. But now Jonathan Taylor's going to be out. Zach Moss did run well on them last time, but they don't have Taylor in this game at all. So the Titans could win this game. It's like a 50-50 game to me. But I have them winning. And this was a 50-50 game. Steelers at Colts. I think a defensive game in that one. Again, I think Jonathan Taylor will still be out. He'll probably be back after that game. The Falcons game, I like the Colts, but it could go either way. Raiders are tough. The Texans game can go either way. So, if we have them beating the Texans or the Titans or losing to the Titans, then we can switch one of these. I just don't know if they're going to win all of these games. I think if we have them, this is how I had it. And if we give them the Steelers game, we're asking a lot here, in my opinion. So that was kind of my thinking. But a lot of these could go either way. Like you said, this was a tough one because you could say like they're going to beat the Steelers, but you could say they're going to lose the Titans or the Falcons. Like they're not going to lose all those. They're not going to win all of them either. So that's the tough part here. Very tough team to predict, which really in multiple of these games. Again, I think it's accurate to say they will lose two. Between the Titans, Steelers, Falcons, Texans, Raiders, like I think they'll lose two of those games. If they lose one, they're gonna make the playoffs. But they're like the Broncos; they got some work to do, which I'm not really doubting those teams. I have them finishing with a pretty good record, especially for who they are. So they got work to do. Maybe a little bit tougher than a team like the Browns, like we explained. But that Texans Colts game could be huge at the end there. To the Bills, I actually have the Bills between the Chiefs and the Cowboys, and then they'll win one of those. Is it any different if we go like this? No, it is not. But if they win out, this is what I had. I have them beating the Chargers. I have them beating the Patriots. I have them beating the Dolphins, which they did last time, but doesn't mean they will this time. I have them beating the Cowboys, but the Chiefs are not as good as they used to be, maybe according to some people, so maybe they beat them. They're good enough. They are very capable of doing this because they're a very talented team, and they're going to get in playoff mode. They played very well against the Eagles. They have the bye to kind of figure it out. They could win out. I almost had it happening. If they win out in my scenario, not only do they make the playoffs, but they win their division. So this is where I was at, really. But I was back and forth with the Cowboys game as well. So I did give them 1 out of 2. But I was very close to having them win out. But tough schedule. Can they close out games? Again, you're telling me between the Chiefs, Cowboys, Chargers. They already lost the Patriots. I don't think they will lose this time. But the Dolphins, they're not going to lose one. They're probably going to lose one. And that puts them at 10-7 and out of the playoffs. In this scenario, I think there's going to be teams in the playoffs that the Bills are better than. So that is kind of unfortunate for the Bills. But I think football fans in general, not if you're a fan of one of those other teams that get in. But I do think the Bills are better than the Steelers, the Browns. If the Broncos or Colts make it, I definitely think they're better than those teams. So we want the best teams in the playoffs, but so maybe if that's your mindset, maybe you're rooting for the Bills to win out. It's a possibility that they could because I think they're that talented, but they haven't been that great this year. Anybody else from the AFC that I want to break down here? Dolphins, I do doubt them a little bit to beat the good teams, but of course I'm confident with them winning these games. They could beat one of those teams for sure. They could beat the Bills. That gives them a little bit more comfort. They're still at that 4 seed, though, in this scenario, so not a whole lot changes there. It only changes if the Bills win out and they get an extra win. Then the Bills can't pass them for the division. Anybody else I want to break down? That seems to be it there from the AFC. The NFC... Yeah, I don't know if we have to talk too much about the Eagles. The Eagles could. I have the Niners beating them. They could rattle off 2 in a row, lose to the Cowboys. They almost lost last time. I have them beating the Seahawks. They'll win those last 3 games, Giants, Cardinals, Giants. They could lose 2 out of the 3. Niners, Cowboys, Seahawks. That's what I had. I could end up picking the Cowboys when that comes around, though. The Cowboys, yeah, they could win that game. I mean, the Cowboys realistically could win out. Do they win the division then? They don't win the division, even though it's tied. Interesting. I thought they would have, but have them being the Dolphins. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, no matter what I have here, they're locked in the 5 seed. The Niners I have winning out. If the Niners slip up once besides, which is very doable. They could lose to the Cowboys, and the Niners are the 1 seed, the 49ers are the 2 seed. So it's hard to pick against the Eagles right now. 1 loss. They're finding ways to win. All right, this is where it gets interesting. The Packers, I surprised myself that I had them going 10-7. They are playing much better football right now, maybe on both sides of the ball. Have them losing. It's Sunday Night Football. They could win. But have them losing the Chiefs But look at the schedule. I have them beating the Giants. The Bucs aren't playing that good of football right now. If they was in Tampa, maybe they should be able to beat the Panthers in the last game of the year. I mean, the Bears are playing tougher, especially on defense. The Bears could upset them there. The main game is the Vikings game. And you look what happens if I have the Vikings winning that game. The Vikings are the 6th seed, and the Packers are actually in as the 7th seed. That's very possible as well. It's tough, though, because the last time they played, the Vikings won fairly easy. That was the game Kirk got hurt in. But yeah, the Vikings don't have Kirk. The quarterback play is it's a mess right now. But the Vikings defense caused big time problems for the Packers offense. Like, it looked like Jordan Love really couldn't comprehend that Brian Flores defense. So that could, and Justin Jefferson will be back as well. So that could be the case again with Jefferson back. And the Vikings could just win again, this time at home. That is very possible. My thinking was I don't really trust the Vikings quarterback situation. Teams are starting to game plan, especially down in Week 17. They'll be figured out even more. They could switch quarterbacks. Could they switch again and again? It's a little bit of a mess. I know Jefferson's back. Packers are playing better football. You would trust maybe they adjust since the last time playing the Vikings defense. Maybe it's a bad matchup. It's possible. The Packers' run defense definitely could hurt them down the stretch as well because it is pretty bad. But that's what I had. That's what I had for the Vikings. I had after the bye, I had them rattling off 2 in a row. They could switch quarterbacks, could cause a tougher game plan. They get Justin Jefferson back. They could beat the Raiders and the Bengals. But I did have them losing those divisional games, which were pretty bad. But the Lions aren't playing the best football right now, so I guess they can beat them. I just don't see them beating the Lions. It's really that Packers game, but like if they win that one, they very easily could lose the Raiders, and they're back out. So it's not looking great after the 2 close last-second losses that they had. So yeah, that becomes pretty tough. Back up to I forgot about the Rams. Yeah, the Rams. This is unless they could get really beat up and injured, it's possible. But I have them beating the Browns at home. The Browns are really beat up. I have them losing to the Ravens. I have them losing 2. Ravens and Niners. We think they can lose those. But Browns in LA, Commanders in LA, Saints in LA, and the Giants, like those are all pretty winnable games unless they're very, very beat up. The Seahawks, I was surprised I did not have them in. I think they're the better team than teams that could be in, like the NFC South teams or the NFC North second team or third team if the Packers Vikings make it. I think the Seahawks are better than all those teams. So it was unfortunate that they're not in. But in Dallas, I don't really trust them. I do not trust them in San Francisco. I don't trust them really against the Eagles. That they could win that. I just don't see it. In Tennessee, the Titans are a much tougher team at home, so that one is not even a free win, but I have them winning. I have them beating the Steelers, too. The Steelers always make it tough. And even in Arizona is not the easiest thing on the planet. I do think they'll win that. So it's tough. I have them losing 3 straight, but I have them winning 3 straight. If they sneak away a win like the Eagles game, are they gonna continue to win? Like the Steelers game is very losable as well. So they're gonna have to pull off an upset in one of these next 3. They're gonna have, and that's a start. That's wrong one. That's a start because if they do that, they're gonna have to finish. They're gonna have to finish strong. So Seahawks get hurt with the schedule. So that is where this is how on the NFC South. Man, it's tough. I have a lot of away teams winning on the Falcons apparently. Huge win against the Saints. The Jets game actually can go either way, but I'm going to trust the Falcons because the Jets quarterback situation. I actually have the Bucs getting the Falcons as a feeling. Next time around, the Falcons beating the Panthers. The Colts beating the Falcons, but the Falcons could win that game. The Bears could win that game as well. They're playing really good defense, the Bears, but Falcons winning that. And the Saints, there's so many scenarios here. Like the Saints could beat them, but they can beat the Bucs here. Bucs get in this scenario if you're looking right above me. At the Saints win and the Falcons win. The Falcons get in still. It's a tough prediction here. That's what I ended up with, though. The Saints are getting really beat up, so that's a tough part there. To the wild card round. So now we can actually get into my playoff predictions. Let's make this a little bigger for you guys here. So this is what I ended up having, and the first game is very interesting right off the bat. Texans at Dolphins. Texans inexperienced. The Dolphins haven't been able to beat good teams really this year at the same time. Tua starting to play a little bit worse than he was earlier in the year. Jalen Phillips goes down. I would actually, maybe I surprise people here, but I would actually pick the upset. I think C.J. Stroud would have a solid day throwing on the Dolphins' defense, and I think the Dolphins, could be explosive on offense, but I think DeMeco Ryans is a good game plan to get that extra stop on defense. I would actually like the Texans. That could surprise some people. That wouldn't surprise me if the Texans win the game. Steelers at Jags. I definitely like the Jags. I definitely like the Ravens over the Browns, even though the Browns did beat them last time. Just playoff mode. Again, this is weird. Like, I feel like there's teams getting in while there's teams sitting at home that are better. Like, I think there's teams that are better than the Steelers and the Browns that I don't have in. I think there's teams that are better than the Packers on the NFC side, perhaps. Mainly because I don't love their run defense. That's a big thing for me. And it'll be a big thing in the playoffs. I definitely have the Cowboys and the Falcons, not just the Packers. Packers and the Falcons, there's teams better than sitting at home. I definitely have the Cowboys there. The Packers just beat up the Lions. I would definitely take the Lions this time around, though. Playoff football, Lions would just go back to just, we're going to all out. We're going to power in the football. We're going to run all over them. We're going to control the clock. We're going to play our game. It would work in the playoffs, even though the Lions aren't playing the best ball right now, and the Packers did completely outplay them. Rams, Niners, NFC West battle. Not much of a battle, actually. Would give them, how healthy will the Rams be? They are pretty good when they're healthy. So then we go to the next round. Jags Ravens is so tough. I broke it down about the regular season game too, because the Jags are they're a really good team in general, but they're really good stopping the run. So they can take that away from the Ravens. And the Ravens could pass. Obviously Lamar can throw the ball, but they're not the greatest passing team on the planet. So the Jags could win because of that, but it's a little different when quarterbacks scramble. I think Lamar getting loose with his legs could be the difference, and I do trust the Ravens defense to slow the Jags offense, but that's a 50-50 game. Some people will maybe have a hard time trusting the Ravens in the playoffs because they do get a little sketchy, like letting teams come back, letting teams stay in the game. How healthy will they be? For now, I'll go that route. Honestly, I could see the Texans being the Chiefs. People might have a hard time believing that. I can see it, but I'm just not going to pick it. I have the Chiefs. I would easily take the Niners over the Lions. Don't hesitate much on that one. Cowboys, Eagles could really go either way. The Cowboys gave a battle in Philly last time we saw them. Eagles look like, even though they're not being beat, looks like they're pretty beatable. But I would, in this stage, I would have to trust the Eagles a little bit more. But honestly, that game could go either way. AFC, NFC championship game. I really sat down, thought about both of these a lot. With the AFC, the Ravens feel better than the Chiefs right now. How will it be in the playoffs? This is where the Chiefs are used to playing very, very good football. Maybe the receivers can get a little better by this point. How's the Ravens' health going to be at this point? Does Mark Andrews come back at this point? That's a tough part. Chiefs defense has been playing pretty well. The Ravens are a really good team. It's just it's difficult to fully trust them in the game after game after game against the best of the best in the playoffs. Not slipping up like they do sometimes. I'm gonna trust the Chiefs a little bit more, but they don't look all that great right now. Those receivers got to play better. And the Niners-Eagles rematch last year, I would hope the Niners be healthier than last year. Could go either way. If the Niners are beat up, Eagles would win. The Niners, they give me more. The Eagles are better right now, technically. The Niners just give me more of that dominance vibe. But then the Eagles, they just find ways to win. They find ways to win. I actually think this would be a shootout. Some people, you think Niners, Eagles, think defense. I actually think this would be an absolute shootout. I'm feeling the Niners, but it's tough to say that because how healthy will they be? But they look like juggernauts once again now that Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel are back. We'll actually see them play each other in Philly this week, so really excited about that. So that leaves the Super Bowl, and then we have graphics for the Super Bowl. So I have Chiefs and Niners. We've seen this a few years ago. The Niners look like they had it. The Chiefs won it. This is on one thing right now to me. Will the Niners be healthy? Will they be healthy? That's the big thing for me. Could the Chiefs throw off Brock Purdy, and create some turnovers? They could. Chiefs receivers, can they catch the ball effectively? I think the Niners, if healthy, would have actually a pretty good game running the football. Even though the Chiefs defense is balling this year, I think they would have a very solid game running the football. In the Chiefs, I can't get over how bad those receivers are playing. I love me some Rashee Rice. They got to use him more and more. Kelsey doesn't really seem the same. He probably will be at this point, though. I like the Niners right now. That's where I'm at, but I usually have a hard time trusting the teams that you just can't trust to stay healthy. This is kind of one of those teams, but we're going to trust it. Maybe they got those injuries already out of the way and they went on that 3-game losing streak. They got their guys right now. I think the D-line, it's a big part of this prediction as well. The D-line is really getting going right now. It was actually it was good, but a little underwhelming earlier in the year. Like Javon Hargrave really getting going even more. Nick Bosa getting going even more. Remember, they got Chase Young. He's only getting started. He's going to be balling, I think, at this time. Brock Purdy's playing. He's adjusting, playing pretty good football. It's on the health. It's on Pert, taking care of the football against when defenses game plan for them at a pretty high level. That's kind of what happened in the playoffs. So that's really what it's on. But those are my predictions as of right now. I do think it's pretty wide open. I think it's a weird year because we're going to see some teams that don't really feel like playoff teams make the playoffs. I think because of their schedule, playing weaker teams, but playing teams at the right time when they're beat up. Teams switching up, new coaches, being a game plan factor, but they're not going to feel like playoff teams when they're in the playoffs, in my opinion. So I kind of wish just the best teams would make it, but as you could tell, we're going to have an interesting playoff field. It's definitely a possibility, but the best teams will come out on top, no doubt. But that's going to wrap it up for my updated playoff predictions. Picks will be on Wednesday night this week for Week 13. And we'll have our score predictions. Still trying to figure out when that'll be, but it'll be up. We got you guys covered here. So join us for all that content. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.